time there was truth in journalism, where brave men and women gave voice to the voiceless. But then the corporations bought the journalist, poisoning the news that we are fed. With those tainted sources, all we ever ate was a steady diet of status quo. This hijacked narrative hid the truth of mass suffering, injustice and corruption throughout our land. Status quo, status quo, status quo, status quo. To expose this shift to oligarchy came a band of honest journalists. They left the studio and hit the streets to give the microphone back to the people. From sea to sea, the people were empowered to share their truth. Their voices no longer stifled, reclaimed their power. Join the media revolution now.
Hello, hello, hello. Jordan Sheridan live on a Sunday marathon live stream. I hope everyone's having a lovely, lovely, lovely weekend. I am currently making plans to get my light. I have currently moved my studio to an undisclosed location. I'm in a bunker somewhere, and I don't actually have my professional lighting, so I'm kind of doing a bit of a glow-in-the-dark show today. So if you're looking for some 60 minutes polish and professional lighting, this is not the show for you. This is not the show for you. But I am working on getting my light, which is not so light to carry, to where I am now. So I hope you could bear with me in this not so super well lit show. But the light in my heart for justice shines bright as always. So we got a big show. I mean, I've been covering politics for over a decade now. It's just unprecedented what you're seeing from the media right now. It is absolutely unprecedented. There is no shame. It's disgusting what you're seeing, and it goes far beyond the Bernie is a sexist lies. Now the media is simply just throwing a protective shield around Joe Biden and hoping, facts don't get out. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to deliver you the facts today. And we also have reporting that Marcus is doing in Iowa for us. If you don't know, Marcus Ely has been freelancing for us because of you, because of your funding. So he, fresh off this faux scandal that Elizabeth Warren concocted right out of, woke nation. He interviewed some Warren supporters yesterday, and they're not so happy. Shocker, in Iowa. So we'll have that, and we're going to have a lot today. So buckle up. It's the law. Now, 200 people watching already. I need every single one of you to press the like button. It's the thumbs up button right under the video. The more people that press this like button, the more people that will see our live stream. As far as I know, we're the only ones live streaming right now. Of course, every time I say that, Bernie Sanders then goes live. So hopefully he could, give me a minute here. So please press the thumbs up button right under the video. It helps us get this to as many people as possible. Right now we got 200 people watching. 75 of you have pressed like, so give me another 125 if you can. Also, join our text list by going to text 474747 and enter Coup. Type in Coup, C-O-U-P. The more people that type in Coup, C-O-U-P, to 474747, the more direct we could get you alerts when we're live, because YouTube isn't notifying you. And by the way, Poopy Cakes, Marcus needs help with his sound quality. We just sent him a new mic, so help is on the way. We know that mic is not so wonderful. So, your audio is pretty harsh, especially when hungover. Really? All right. My mic is not turned up all the way. let me know if other people are having audio problems. Follow us at Status Coup on the Twitter. We're live there right now. Follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Status Coup. We are live there as well. And join our email list, if you could be so kind, by going to statuscoup.com. Enter your email. This is a very, very important way that we grow. And as always, it is Sunday. I'm feeling pretty super. It's my nephew's birthday party. And I don't want to say more importantly than that, but it also happens to be the season premiere of Curb Your Enthusiasm tonight, which is, to me, as big as the Super Bowl. I'm a giant Curb Your Enthusiasm fan. Larry David is my hero, even though he stupidly gave a donation to Pete Buttigieg, but I digress. So definitely, if you're feeling super, let us know in the super chat. Thank you. Proud of Foots for getting us started today, $27. Thank you and your whole team for your good work. Absolutely hilarious, all the complaining I'm hearing about divisive it is to have an opinion about partisan political attack on Sanders. Oh, thank you so much for the donation. I'm going to get into this. You know what, Elizabeth Warren? If you want to enter the arena, if you want to shank Bernie Sanders, not in the back, in the front, don't play a victim after the fact. And, I'm sorry, but I have a big issue with somebody, it's like an arsonist lights your house on fire. Then you press charges and the arsonist says, but I'm a woman. And I'm a woman. No. Elizabeth Warren shot figurative bullets at Bernie Sanders. The people have fired back. And now she's like, I don't want to talk about it. Bernie's a friend of mine. No. That's not how that works. Okay? And if we want equality, man versus woman, which I'm totally for, then you don't get to be treated as a victim. She chose to do this, and we got a lot more about that. Thank you, Edwin. $5 in the super chat. AM Joy brought out a body language expert. This is why Status Coup exists. They give you lane with this horrible crap. Oh, you will see my body language today about that. Thank you. And by the way, real quick before we get into the first story, remember, we could only grow through you. We're finally moving a little bit. YouTube has taken its claws off our back. So we just passed 67,000 subscribers. We just passed 800 paid members. We're at 809. My goal for today, maybe we can get that number up to 830. Can we get another 21 of you to sign on the bottom line? Statuscoup.com/join. That's statuscoup.com/join. We'll have more original reporting. So, before I get into the absurdity of the media literally just lying and reinventing history for Joe Biden, there is a bit of breaking news that I think progressives, if you're actually progressive, will like. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, who has been kind of the last holdout, I guess you could say, of the progressive ranks, has endorsed Bernie Sanders. This is an endorsement that reports indicate Elizabeth Warren was fighting very hard to get. But Congresswoman Jayapal, who is co-chair of the Progressive Progressive Caucus, Congresswoman from Washington State, she has endorsed Bernie Sanders. She says because he has clarity on policy prescription that goes right to the heart of what working people need. She'll officially endorse him in Iowa tomorrow, and she is going to be named the campaign co-chair on health policy chair, not co-chair, health policy chair for the Sanders campaign, as well as chair of Washington State. Great endorsement. I think that this kind of runs the gamut for Bernie Sanders as far as the progressive coalition in Congress. Obviously, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez endorsed him, which I think in many ways saved his campaign. I also think the endorsements of Congresswoman Tlaib, Omar, Congressman Khanna, and now Jayapal. Essentially, the only one who hasn't endorsed him is Ayanna Pressley, who that's really not so surprising, being that she's a congresswoman from Massachusetts and had an existing relationship with Senator Warren. So Jayapal, I mean, there's not much to say. It makes sense. They're the closest together on Medicare for All. A lot of people, when they look in the weeds of healthcare policy, actually think Jayapal's bill in the House, which is different than Bernie's bill in the Senate, is actually better than Bernie's bill because there's a 2-year transition to Medicare for all as opposed to a 4-year bill. So in some regards, Jayapal's bill goes further. We should also mention, not a name that's as big as Jayapal, but the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, Mark Pocan, endorsed Bernie Sanders this week as well. And Mark Pocan is a congressman from Wisconsin. So that's a critical state that Bernie won in the primary in 2016. He's got to win it again. And obviously, if you could win in the Democratic primary states like Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania might be a little tough for Bernie, being that, Scranton Joe. But if Bernie could win Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, possibly Ohio, that's a general election argument right there, if I've ever seen one. So he's got the Wisconsin congressman's endorsement, Mark Pocan, and now Pramila Jayapal. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Rome, $5 in the super chat. I thought she was going to either sit on the sidelines or at one point before Warren moonwalked away from Medicare for All, she'd endorse her. I actually thought she was going to sit it out too, but I'm glad she didn't. Sire Baz, $6.99 in the super chat. Seeing what all the hacks in MSM are doing to Bernie, I have never been more proud to be a Status Coup member. Would you accept an invitation from CNN or MSNBC? You're damn right I would. Oh my God, if I could get on CNN or MSNBC, whoa, Nelly. You see, I would do things a little bit differently if I got on CNN or MSNBC. And I promise, we're going to get to Biden, but I got to answer the people. Sarah Brennan, $5 in the super chat. Keep up the good work, Jordan. Love you down in D.C., Sarah. Say hi to the dogs. So, what's amazing to me, you see progressives go on CNN and this and that. And frankly, I'm just going to be honest with you. There are progressives that go on CNN and are more diplomatic, are more pull their punches, because frankly, those progressive organizations that they represent, it's very attractive to potential investors. We're on CNN frequently, we're on MSNBC, so they go on and they're diplomatic, but they don't quite make the case the way it needs to be made. I'm not saying I would go in like a kamikaze pilot and just burn down CNN. I'm not advocating that. But I would not be so diplomatic, because I don't. Why treat CNN like it's a credible news organization when they're showing you day after day? They're not. So if I ever got invited on CNN, I don't think it would be pretty for them. I just don't. Eddie G, $1.99. Are you worried about superdelegates screwing us? Yeah, I am worried about superdelegates, but you gotta. One primary in front of you. I think what Warren did potentially could screw Bernie in terms of this faux wokeness and her supporters getting very offended over what Warren claimed was said. If Bernie has the most pledged delegates at the time of the convention, but not enough to clinch it on the first ballot, he's going to have Warren's delegates come over to him. And if Warren's delegates are going to, be, Hillary Clinton 2.0 and cry sexist Bernie bros and not honor the will of the people, then it is going to go to superdelegates. And if it goes to superdelegates, they're not going to do the right thing. I could promise you that. All right. So, and I'll try to keep up with the super chats, keep them coming. Obviously Warren, and by the way, we're monitoring here. The New York Times is supposed to be out with their endorsement today. I don't know what time, but it's supposed to be today. My money's on Biden or Warren. I think it's going to be Biden, but if not Biden, I think it's going to be Warren. So if that happens while I'm live, we'll respond. I read most of the interviews they did. The one with Bernie was just absurdly challenging. Biden was just, a love fest. So Joe Biden, before Elizabeth Warren did what she did this week, which I'm going to show you Marcus's reporting, and Elizabeth Warren, by the way, just dodged a question of her own supporter. Her own supporter in Iowa said, would you accept Joe Biden's offer to be his vice president? Completely dodged. So we're going to show you that. Before she did this, Bernie was actually, to me, making some progress as far as really picking off the main voters that are his weakness, and that's older voters. No offense if you're older watching. There's a lot of older people who are progressive, but by the numbers, Biden, Hillary Clinton, Warren, Pete, their core base is people over 50. That's just the data. It is what it is. So Bernie needs to play to some of those people. It's not going to be determinative in him winning. I think it's more important for him to bring out first-time voters and voters who haven't voted in a while, expanding the electorate like his campaign is trying to do. By the way, we got 400 people watching, 215 have you pressed the thumbs up button. If I could get another 150 of you right now, press that thumbs up button. Makes a big difference. So Bernie was making headway. I mean, I don't think Bernie was aggressively himself doing it. I think it was a major fail in the debate not to attack Biden on Social Security. But his campaign has been making the case against Joe Biden. And the videos are the videos. I'm going to show them all to you. There's countless videos of Joe Biden aggressively and passionately calling to means test Social Security, calling to raise the retirement age, calling for adjustments, which in Washington means cuts. I mean, the video exists. It's not hard to find. But Joe Biden was banking on that the media wouldn't cover it. But Bernie's campaign has been very smart because essentially their digital strategy, which really started in 2016 and has accelerated in the years between 2016 and now, their digital strategy has basically been to create an alternative network, like call it Bernie TV, that encompasses Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all these places to reach voters outside of the CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post bubble. So they were successful setting out these clips on Biden trying to cut Social Security. Because one of the things, I mean, I'm not of that age, but that's one of the top issues. I remember my grandma when she was alive. She would talk to me about, my benefits are getting weaker, and these Republicans are trying to cut my Social Security. And I'd say, Granny, Mamo, it's not just the Republicans trying to cut your Social Security. Later in her life, at the end, I got her on the Bernie train, but unfortunately, she's not here anymore. So Elizabeth Warren, I mean, everybody's got their conspiracy theory. Did she do this to help Biden? Did she do this to change the news cycle? So the effective attacks Bernie was having. And by the way, I don't even call them attacks. It's not an attack to just point out your opponent's record. Do you want this to be like flag football, where we don't touch each other and there's no tackling? What do you want? You want to have like a nice tea and crumpets party? This is a primary. It is fair game to go after your opponent on their record, not make-believe conversations that no one can verify. So it was working. And then Warren obviously did what she did. But what Warren did, honestly, and I've reported on this week, it doesn't particularly look like it had the effect she wanted. And when I say she, I also mean it doesn't particularly look like it had the effect the Hillary Clinton people surrounding her campaign wanted. Because Warren has a lot of people who worked for Hillary Clinton's campaign in her campaign. She also has a lot of former Obama people who worked for Obama in her campaign. To me, maybe it wasn't originally Warren's idea to detonate the bomb now. Maybe it was the people around her. She definitely approved it. You don't have 4 people go to CNN with this story without the candidate knowing. And if that is what happened, she shouldn't be president anyway, because if you can't even handle your staff, you're going to handle the country. So it was working. But now that that's not completely out of the news cycle, oh, here we go again. Why is my thing not working? Hold on. Russia's hacked me again. Stay with me for a second. Ooh. I go frozen. Did we come back? Are we back? Why is my screen black? Oh, there we are. Sorry, the Russians got to me for a minute. We're back. So it's now slightly out of the news cycle. So Bernie's campaign is increasing the attacks on Biden for his record on Social Security, because his record is not protecting older people. It is basically after his party's neoliberal policies mixed with Reaganism and the Republican extremism have done this to the country. After his neoliberal policies and that of the Democratic Party mixed with the trickle-down tooth fairy of Reaganism have done this to the country, his policies have been to try and even the playing field, not by let's tax the rich a lot more, not by let's tax the corporations a lot more, not by let's actually have some healthy regulation. His policies have been let's make cuts to, not to cut the military at all. Let's raise the retirement age. Let's means test Social Security. Let's freeze it. So what is the media doing as a result of Bernie Sanders' effective criticism? Thank you, Steve Jacob, 279. Presley is not progressive. She backed Hillary 2016. Well, she's not as progressive as the others. I would agree with that. So what are they doing? They're making believe that Joe Biden isn't against Social Security. Politico. Biden charges Sanders camp doctored video to attack him. Joe Biden accused Bernie Sanders campaign Saturday of issuing a doctored video to attack him over Social Security, a false claim that ratcheted up the tension between the two campaigns in the run-up to the Iowa caucuses. So here, at least Politico said a false claim, because I don't even know if Joe Biden knows what the definition of doctoring is. It's not doctored. On Twitter, right? On Twitter, you only get X amount of time allotted. So I could only post a 2-minute and 20-second clip. That Twitter won't let me and others post a 20-minute clip. So Bernie Sanders' campaign has been putting out a speech that Joe Biden gave as vice president saying Paul Ryan was right to want to look at Medicare and Social Security. But And the things he said were clearly talking about making cuts. But to CNN, because Bernie Sanders' campaign didn't play the whole clip, somehow they selectively doctored it. This is literally this is what you hear from Donald Trump. When there is clips of Donald Trump saying terrible things. Remember he said, "Oh, that's not my voice" on the Access Hollywood tapes. Then he said time and time again, no, that wasn't the full clip. Or fake news, they pulled it out of context. Larry the Truth, $2. Warren had a meeting with Bernie and her teepee. Larry, don't you start. Inappropriate, Larry. But thank you for the super chat. Is that my father, Larry? I don't think so. So just watch this CNN clip from this morning. And by the way, you should give super chats a status quo for the amount of CNN I watch so you don't have to. My girlfriend hates it. Said, George, let's watch Real Housewives, which I did watch yesterday. I'm not going to lie to you. Passively. We watched the Aaron Hernandez. Oh, we did watch the Aaron Hernandez show, too. So let me show you this clip. It's truly astounding.
There's a big debate. Joe Biden complaining yesterday about a video we're going to play you here. A senior Sanders campaign advisor retweeting this video of Joe Biden that cuts him off abruptly when he's making a point about Social Security.
Paul Ryan was correct. When he did the tax code, what's the first thing he decided we had to go after? Social Security and Medicare. Now, we need to do something about Social Security and Medicare. That's the only way you can find room to pay for it.
Now, the video cuts off there. If you actually wanted to be fair and have full context, you would listen as the former vice president went on.
We need a pro-growth progressive tax code that treats workers as job creators as well, not just investors, that gets rid of unprotected loopholes like stepped-up basis, and it raises enough revenue to make sure that the Social Security and Medicare can stay, still needs adjustments, but can stay, and pay for the things we all acknowledge will grow the country.
And so yesterday, and it will continue to play out today, you get a debate. We saw a lot between the Clinton and the Sanders camp back in 2016. The Sanders campaign is saying, oh, so what? Grow up. So we abruptly cut up a video that takes the vice president out of context. So what? Because in their view, Joe Biden did, and the record supports, back when they were having debates about balancing the budget, back when there was an effort to reform entitlements, Joe Biden is on the record over the last 20, 30 years of at times saying we should means test Social Security. Maybe they would have a spending freeze that includes Social Security and Medicare. We should talk about these big structural issues. There was a time when Washington had conversations about the budget deficit. Those times are gone. Bernie Sanders and the liberals then didn't like it, and they don't like it now. So you can have a conversation about Joe Biden's record, but they get very prickly when you say you should have it in a respectful way, not abruptly edit a video to make it appear he said something he didn't.
Right. Well, we're in a phase, as you just said, of the primary where things are starting to get very nasty. And it is fair for the Biden campaign to complain about the way that video was edited and to say you can't just, quote him saying that we need to touch Social Security and Medicare and then not also quote him saying, and by the way, we also need to raise taxes and find a different way to reorder the priorities of our tax code so that we can pay for all of this. But it is fair also to point out, and this is going to be a theme from Bernie Sanders or whoever the surviving, progressive candidate is in the primary in several weeks, that, Joe Biden is a centrist on this. He has been willing to go and touch what he has himself called a third rail of talking about potential cuts and slows to the growth of Social Security and Medicare in order to, balance the budget and get the country to a place where, the fiscal picture is not as skewed as it is now. And that is an issue that many candidates have not been willing to talk about. And it will be interesting to see if Joe Biden embraces that history of having talked about that or backs off now and says, that may have been the right thing to debate then, but not now.
Yeah, his new plan is more, it's not a Sanders plan, but his new plan is more to the left than where Joe Biden was years ago. We'll see. Maybe I'm asking too much, so we actually have context and nuance in these debates over very important policy as opposed to clipped videos, but oh well.
There's so many things wrong with that report that it would take me 3 hours. First of all, this is not about Bernie Sanders for a second. It's not about Bernie or Joe Biden. This is just about, logistically, Bernie Sanders' campaign didn't edit the clip. There was no deceptive editing. They posted on Twitter, right? So, before the show today, I have a 10-minute video that I want to play for you. I have a 15-minute video that I want to play for you. But for those 10-minute videos or 15-minute videos, I'm not. Some companies or whatever are allowed to post longer clips on Twitter, but for most, Twitter only allows you a 2-minute and 20-second time to post. Some choose to post 30 seconds. Some choose to post a minute. But in the clips that I saw sent out by the Sanders campaign, they isolated a clip and then posted the actual full link to the whole thing. But putting aside the inaccurate phrasing that they selectively edited something when they didn't, Joe Biden right there, this is how out of touch wealthy, mostly white anchors and journalists are. When Joe Biden says we need to make adjustments as Ryan Grimm from The Intercept points out, adjustments in Washington is a euphemism for cuts. That's just a basic fact of congressional lingo that can't be disputed. But I don't blame PolitiFact for not being familiar with it. Now that they are, this should be corrected. We're going to get to Politico in a second. So that's number one. Joe Biden is clearly talking about adjustments. Larry the Truth, $5. No, I'm originally from Bushwick, Brooklyn, and live in Atlanta, Florida. Bernie 2020 or bust. Thank you, Larry. Love ya. So, first of all, you think the person who's going to defeat Donald Trump is on tape agreeing with Paul Ryan? You think the person who's going to beat Donald Trump is on tape, which I'm going to show you in a minute, praising Bob Dole? You think the person who's going to defeat Donald Trump is on tape giving George W. Bush a Patriot Award? You think this is going to defeat Donald Trump? Remember, Chuck Schumer in 2016 said, for every blue collar worker in Pennsylvania we lose, we're going to pick up 2 Republican voters. Like, why do you keep doing the same exact strategy, expecting a different result? It's insanity. PolitiFact out with this garbage. Did Biden laud a Paul Ryan proposal to cut Social Security, as Bernie Sanders' campaign said? Well, I don't think Bernie Sanders' campaign said he lauded it. He said, Biden openly said, I agree with Paul Ryan on making changes to Social Security and Medicare. Again, adjustments, changes, it means cuts. When you raise the retirement age, that's a cut. When you means test it, that's a cut. It's taking services and the program away from eligible people. I don't know what these people think that is. And by the way, just a totally separate discussion, I love, not one person on that panel said, why does Joe Biden never talk about adjustments to the military? We can't have discussions about adjustments needed to be had of the military budget, because the military budget is bigger than the budget for Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. I don't know if you know that. The cost of the military budget is bigger. But we never talk about, if we don't look at making adjustments to the military budget, the sun won't rise in 20 years. It's this cognitive dissonance that these journalists have. Got to figure out how to pay for these programs that, older people rely on, sick people rely on, vulnerable people rely on, the poor rely on. And by the way, they're not entitlements. People pay into the programs. So you are not taking away something that people are entitled to. You're taking away something that people have paid into. Liz Snack Cake 7, $1.99. If MSM asked Biden these questions, we have a larger convo. Oh, they're not going to, because I painfully read the entire interview the New York Times did with Joe Biden. They've done interviews with all the candidates before they make their endorsement today. They're supposed to make their endorsement today. It hasn't been announced yet. My money's on Biden. If not Biden, I think it's going to be Warren. Oh, and by the way, just how tough the New York Times went on Joey. Take a look at, you just can't make this up. Take a look at the New York Times questioning to Joe Biden. And this is the New York Times question to Biden during his editorial interview. And you've had in debates a couple times, you've had a little trouble answering for positions that you held decades ago, which I think is a bit ridiculous that that's an issue. But those questions aren't going away. So the New York Times thinks it's ridiculous that Joe Biden is being asked about. These aren't my words. That's the New York Times person asking, which I think is a bit ridiculous that that's an issue. So, the fact that you said we shouldn't give black people an advantage to even out the race, that's so long ago, who cares? The fact that you were against busing, that's so long ago, who cares? Crime bill, who cares? Too long ago. Bernie Sanders, was at an event, a speech in Nicaragua in the 1980s. There was anti-American screams going around. Let's grill Bernie Sanders on that. That wasn't ridiculous. It's not ridiculous to ask Bernie Sanders about things in the 1980s. It's ridiculous to challenge Joe Biden on anything back in the day. Not ridiculous to ask Joe Biden. By the way, I go through that Joe Biden interview. They didn't ask him one question about his record on Social Security. Not a question. It's not ridiculous it's ridiculous that Joe Biden should be asked about the crime bill. Ridiculous that Joe Biden should be asked about voting for the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which led to the global financial crash. It's ridiculous that Joe Biden should be asked about the bankruptcy bill. I 99% sure they didn't ask him about that either. But Bernie Sanders should be challenged on being at a rally in Nicaragua. He should be challenged on bringing back in the 1980s, while he was mayor of Burlington, Vermont, going to the Soviet Union. He should be challenged on that. You see the journalistic consistency here? Margot, $10 in the super chat. Keeping the fight alive deep in the heart of Maine. Don't forget Senator Susan Collins is being challenged for her seat. Donate to her challengers. Take the power back. Ugh, that moderate Republican Susan Collins. Don't get me started. Thank you, Margot. So, PolitiFact is jumping on this train that Bernie's campaign took Joe Biden out of context, and they rule we rate this statement false. Even though Joe Biden is literally on tape. He's literally on tape saying we need to make adjustments. And that's just one tape. I'm about to show you a whole bunch of others. But CNN, MSNBC doesn't want to be outdone either. So here's MSNBC using these same talking points that are not factual at all.
For Americans.
So the idea here is that
For Americans.
So the idea here is that Biden was saying this is something that Republicans will want to force because they have passed the tax cut, and the Sanders edited video made it seem like that was Biden's position. I just want to make sure I understand this right.
Exactly. And that
MSNBC's crusade against Bernie Sanders has nothing to do with its parent company, Comcast, pouring in hundreds of millions of dollars to stop net neutrality. Oh, by the way, Comcast happens to do fundraisers for Joe Biden. Top lobbyist for Comcast had Joe Biden at his house with other plutocrats for his first fundraiser. That has nothing to do with anything. But again, this use of the term edited or deceptively doctored, it's not factual. It's not factual at all. Bernie Sanders' campaign put out a sliver of what Joe Biden said, and instead of actually wanting to talk about it, instead of wanting to actually answer for his past comments, Joe Biden is borrowing from Trump and saying fake news. You doctored it. So, here's Joe Biden through the years on Social Security.
When I argued that we should freeze federal spending, I meant Social Security as well. I meant Medicare and Medicaid. I meant veterans benefits. I meant every single solitary thing in the government. And I not only tried it once, I tried it twice, I tried it a third time, and I tried it a fourth time. I introduced the balanced budget amendment in 1984. It got nowhere. I'm one of those Democrats. I introduced the balanced budget amendment in 1984. It got nowhere. I'm one of those Democrats who voted for the constitutional amendment to balance the budget. I have introduced on four occasions, entire plans to balance the budget, knowing I'm not president and I'm not the leader, but for illustrative purposes. I tried with Senator Grassley back in the 80s to freeze all government spending, including Social Security, including everything.
We have Senator, we have a deficit. We have Social Security and Medicare looming. The number of people on Social Security and Medicare is now 40 million people. It's going to be 80 million in 15 years. Would you consider looking at those programs, age of eligibility,
Absolutely.
cost of living, put it all on the table?
The answer is absolutely, you have to. I mean, it's one of the things that the political advisors say to me is, whoa, don't touch that third. Look, the American people aren't stupid. It's a real simple proposition. We have to do, you and I were talking about Bob Dole earlier. I was one of 5 people, I was the junior guy, in the meeting with Bob Dole, George Mitchell, when we put Social Security in the right path for 60 years. I'll never forget what Bob Dole said. After we reached an agreement about gradually raising the retirement age, et cetera, he said, look, here's the deal. We all put our foot in the boat one at a time. And he kiddingly, he stepped like he was stepping into a boat. And we all make the following deal. If any one of the challengers running against incumbent Democrat or Republicans attacks us on this point, we'll all stay together. That's the kind of leadership that is needed. Social Security is not the hard one to solve. Medicare, that is the gorilla in the room. And you've got to put all of it on the table.
Everything.
Everything. You've got to. To protect them. Ladies and gentlemen, the American people know we have to fix Social Security. They know we can't grow our way to a solution. They know we're going to have to make some tough decisions. They're ready to make these decisions. They're ready to step up. We have to be ready to straightforwardly tell them what we're about to do. As I go around the country like other candidates, whether I'm in Oxford, Mississippi, or Bangor, Maine, it doesn't matter. The one criticism our party gets from Democrats is we tend to be too timid. It's almost like we're afraid to tell the American people the unvarnished truth. Well, folks, they're waiting for the truth. And folks, there's not a
How's that? That's the unvarnished truth. And just so I'm not accused of doctoring anything or selectively editing anything, I just played you full clips that are on YouTube. Those are the clips. And this goes beyond Social Security, okay? Because Social Security, it's important, don't get me wrong. But this goes beyond Social Security. And put aside Bernie Sanders for a second, and put aside Joe Biden for a second. And I don't often do this, but I'm going to borrow from my old boss, Cenk Uygur, because I think there's something that he and the Young Turks has said. I don't want to say it was mine. They've said it for a long time. The corporate media's bias is not necessarily left or right. Their bias is for the establishment. Their bias is for the status quo. So that's why immediately when there is, that's just 4 or 5 clips. There are more out there. You just got to look. Joe Biden saying things about Social Security, Medicare. We got to increase the military budget. We got to cut food stamps. I've seen it. So instead of having the mentality of a journalist, all right, let the voters need to know. Let's get this out there. Immediately, in their mind, CNN's John King, that MSNBC reporter, their benefit of the doubt, because that's what it is, goes to the establishment figure. Well, he's taken out of context. Context is very important. This is selectively edited. La 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 la. Yet, the same network, the very same network, CNN, just ran for a week with a story they concocted that is the definition of something not verifiable. Is the definition of something that, the definition of he said, she said. The definition of something that has no context because you don't even know what literally was said. Don't take it from me. Take it from the CNN anchor this morning. I tweeted it out. That literally said, and I quote, "We can't know what was said." Speaking about between Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And by the way, we got almost 700 people watching. 413 of you have pressed that thumbs up button. We need over 200 more of you. Please press the like button. Right there. Thumbs up button right under the video. So, when it is negative about, when the facts and the record are negative about Joe Biden, lacking context. When we could push something and drive a story that has no context, we literally don't know what was said. We're just going to take the word of Elizabeth Warren and spin it as a fact. It hurts Bernie Sanders. To hell with context. This is manufacturing consent. This is propping up the status quo. That is why we need a status coup in this country. Who's with me? Sign up as a member. statuscoup.com/join. Join the media revolution for as low as $5 a month. Makes a big difference. Thank you. Estable Garcia, $5 in the super chat. With all the evidence out, CNN is unable to confirm the truth about Biden. Meanwhile, they were able to confirm Sanders is sexist with no evidence. You said it better than I could say it. And you want to know something? In this age of truly fake news, what I mean by that is there legitimately is distorted videos going out. You know, fast forwarding things people said, faking things people said. It's called deep fake. Yes, deep fake. In this age of actual fake news, I don't mean Trump's version of fake news, which is just Trump's BS way of shielding himself from any accountability for anything. But in this age of actual fake news, what CNN, MSNBC is doing is a real dangerous game because it creates really a post-truth world where fact doesn't matter anymore. Listen, it's very possible that if CNN and MSNBC reported these facts about Joe Biden and his continued crusade to, instead of cutting the military budget, instead of raising taxes a lot higher on wealthy people and corporations, of adjusting Social Security, it's very possible that seniors would look at that and say, well, I don't like that, but he's saying now I'm going to expand it, and I think he's best to beat Donald Trump. That's possible. But the viewers deserve the truth, and CNN's not giving it to them. And by the way, I mean, it's not just what Joe Biden said in the 1980s, the 1990s. I mean, oh, well, here is Joe Biden in 1983 in a newspaper. Biden also suggested that a gradual increase in the retirement age would help to improve the Social Security system. Again, calling for a raise in the retirement age. PolitiFact, this is from Ryan Grimm. PolitiFact says Biden was being sarcastic and mocking Paul Ryan when he agreed that you have to cut Social Security to balance the budget. Of course, how can PolitiFact, who's supposed to verify facts, factually know if Joe Biden was being sarcastic or not? That's your interpretation. But again, these are our fact checkers. But that whisper thing Biden does is an old move. He does it when he's speaking forbidden, politically incorrect truths to the left. Go watch Biden's speeches. You'll find that whisper move is consistent. Means he's attacking the left. But okay, say you don't believe me. It's wrong on a second count here. PolitiFact bolded the wrong words. The right ones are highlighted. And Grimm points out it still needs adjustment. Talking about Social Security. Adjustment in Washington is a euphemism for cuts. This part, though, there's no excuse for. PolitiFact, as their neutral arbiter, uses a guy from an organization founded for the purpose of cutting Social Security. You just can't make this up. You literally can't make this up. PolitiFact, like the judge in this, goes to an eyewitness whose organization's stated goal is to cut Social Security to determine whether Biden has called to cut Social Security. And by the way, it's not just as a senator. Biden, when he was vice president to Obama, spent months pursuing a deal with Republicans that would have cut Social Security and Medicare benefits. This is a matter of public record. They changed their tune in the latter years, but the history is pretty clear on this. Want more? This is the guy who wrote the oral history of Obama. Brian Adams. Enough video evidence shows how Biden's being particularly Trumpy about his willingness to cut Social Security and Medicare. Also worth noting, in the oral history, Obama aides openly discuss the White House putting entitlements on the table during the 2011 budget wars. Biden led those talks for 2 months, and he shows former Obama people in their books pointing this out. So, you want to have a debate? Let's have a debate. if you think Social Security should be cut instead of the military budget, if you think Social Security should be cut or the retirement age should be cut instead of increasing taxes on corporations, increasing taxes on people that are very wealthy, instead on increasing taxes on capital gains, if you think instead of doing those things, we should cut health services for old people, cut income for older people who paid to have that benefit, then you should defend that and explain why. 700 people watching. 530 of you have pressed that like button. Can I get 150 more of you? Please press the like button. Keep the super chats coming. So it's just this is all an alternate reality. But they keep getting away with it. And by the way, Biden himself told you. My dad used to have an expression, never complain and never explain. And guess what? I'm leading in the polls, okay? That's number one. Never explain. Double down. Lie and say that, the other guy's doctoring the record, misrepresenting my words. Up is down is up. Never explain. As the New York Times questionnaire feeds him Grey Poupon and says it's a bit ridiculous that you're being challenged on things from 2-3 decades ago. Never explain. So we'll see. I mean, to me, and I tweeted this out the other day, I'm pretty sure it's coming this week. We'll see. To me, Warren's thing obviously failed. Bernie is still going up. I actually think if Warren's attack and smear campaign was effective, I don't think you would have seen Pramila Jayapal come out and endorse him this week. I really don't. If you missed the beginning of the show, Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, co-chair of the Progressive Caucus, just endorsed Bernie Sanders. Steve Jacob, 279. It's like Robin Hood in reverse. Haha. Couldn't agree more. So Warren's thing has not been effective. So now the media is shielding Biden on his record. And by the way, I'm just keeping it real. You might not like it. Shame on Bernie Sanders for not attacking Joe Biden when he had the chance. I do think he was a little thrown off during the debate because a friend that he has fought for years stabbed him in the front. But Joe Biden was standing right next to him, talking about being a middle-class warrior and all these things. Bernie didn't say a word about Social Security and what Biden has tried to do to it. It's, your campaign surrogates can attack. It's got to come from you, too. Brian, Bernie fought Obama cuts to Social Security. Correct. So we'll see how it shakes out, but the facts are the facts. I mean, even the Washington Post of all places, Biden is vulnerable to Trump on Social Security. He's not just vulnerable to Trump on Social Security. He's vulnerable to Trump on trade. I mean, the Titanic is coming, folks. The Titanic is coming. And nobody's paying attention to this. I told you this earlier. Let me find that clip. Damn it, I don't have it. Trump, actually, let me see if I can find it. Give me a second. Nah, I don't have it. It was basically a statement by Trump that the Democratic Party has failed you. The Democratic Party has sold your jobs offshore. Oh, I do have it. Let me just put it in here. Trump Bernie. This right here is going to be why Joe Biden loses if this Titanic keeps going. This is Trump at a rally. For decades, career politicians promised to defend the workers of Ohio, and they went to Washington and voted for the same globalist policies that devastated your communities and shipped away your jobs. The Democrat politicians we are fighting today are the same ones who took a sledgehammer to Ohio jobs and factories and destroyed your factories and destroyed your jobs. They are losing, and we are winning. So why is that going to be effective? And by the way, why do you think it is that Trump is doing this song and dance where he's tweeting out, oh, the Democrats are trying to screw Bernie Sanders again. Oh, the Democrats are being unfair. Crazy Bernie's getting screwed. You think Donald Trump actually gives a damn that the Democrats are screwing Bernie Sanders? Trump is very smartly, he's seeing the writing on the wall. He's seeing that the Democrats, the media, the DNC, and I'm going to get to the DNC in a bit, are doing the same thing they did in 2016. It's a different iteration this time, but they're screwing Bernie Sanders. So what is he doing? He's pointing out the facts. His ulterior motives are not altruistic, but he's pointing out the facts. Why? So that if and when they do screw Bernie and he's not the nominee, that he will inspire Bernie supporters to either vote third party or stay home or vote for him, even though a very small portion of Bernie Sanders supporters said that they would end up voting for him. Actually, Bernie Sanders, when polled, only 4% of Bernie Sanders supporters say if he was not the nominee that they would vote for Trump. Biden, Warren, and Buttigieg had higher number of their voters who said they would vote for Trump than Bernie did. You'll never hear that. So, to me, what's next? Warren's attacks didn't work, which I'm about to show you. So, what does Biden have? Well, he has impeachment starting Tuesday, taking Bernie off the campaign trail. But Bernie, right now, is scheduled to go back to Iowa, even during the impeachment hearings this week, late at night. But what else does Biden have? Well, he's hoping that the impeachment hearing, even though it's about Trump and his corruption, indirectly props him up, because obviously the impeachment hearing is about Trump and what he did in terms of trying to get an investigation opened up against Biden. But if more polls come out still showing, and by the way, the polls that come out outwardly and publicly are not the same as the campaign's internal polling. So it's very likely that Joe Biden's internal polling, and this is why I also think that Warren made this drastic decision to basically stab her friend in the front, her internal polling is probably showing worse numbers than the public polling is. Same thing for Biden. So I think the next step in this crusade against Bernie, they tried sexism. It hasn't really moved the polls completely against Bernie. There's been a few polls out. They still show Bernie either in first in Iowa or New Hampshire, or a close second. Nationally, a Reuters poll came out. Bernie was in first. Warren 3 points behind. Oh, excuse me. Bernie in first. Biden 3 points behind. Warren far behind at 12%. I think next is the communist stuff. I think they already have Bernie's comments from the 80s, 90s, praising Fidel Castro. They already have his comments praising the Soviet Union. They already have all this. They're going to unleash it probably this week. That's my best guess. So, we'll be here to give you fact versus fiction. Bernie Sanders isn't perfect. There's some votes he's done that I don't agree with. But overall, I mean, Bernie Sanders is by far the most progressive candidate we've seen this century. Bernie Sanders would be by far the most progressive president we've seen since FDR. I think he goes further than FDR in a lot of areas. And it's a street fight now. It's a street fight for the presidency. And I don't really view myself, I know critics of what I do and what others do just consider us Bernie bros pretending to be journalists. I don't really consider myself like a Bernie bro. Like, the Bernie campaign has never asked me to do anything. I've never shared information with the Bernie campaign. I consider myself a progressive journalist trying to counter the corporate propaganda. And I've countered it not just when it's hurting Bernie Sanders, but when they're doing this against Ocasio-Cortez, when they're doing it against Nina Turner. I am a progressive, but more importantly, we need to counter propaganda, because propaganda is what continues this. Propaganda is what keeps this in place. lies and public relations professionals pretending to be journalists is what keeps this humming. What keeps this status quo. So, moving on. We got almost 800 people watching. 600 of you have pressed that like button. If I can get another 200 of you to press the thumbs up button right under the video, it makes a big difference. I want to bring you to Iowa, where Marcus is. After Elizabeth Warren, pulled this attack on Bernie Sanders, he went to cover Warren. And instead of, asking her for comment, which she twisted herself into a pretzel to not comment, Marcus went straight to her supporters. So let's take a look, actually. First, I want to show you Elizabeth Warren. I mean, if you want to be charitable and say, well, she didn't say she would serve as Joe Biden's vice president, but she didn't deny it. Marcus caught up with a voter, a Warren supporter who also is fond of Bernie, but she supports Warren too, who asked Warren after she pulled this sexism attack on Bernie Sanders, would you accept a position as Joe Biden's vice president? Let's take a look.
Marcus Ely here for Status Coup. Now I'm here with Alex, and she recently asked Senator Warren a question. I'm going to go ahead and cut to that so we can see the question she asked, and then we'll come right back.
Thank you for taking my question, Senator. In 2016, Politico published a report entitled "Biden Wanted Warren as his VP because he needed a partner to capture the wave of anti-bank and anti-establishment anger raging from the left." My question is, what would you say to your progressive supporters who fear that maybe you would be persuaded to join a more centrist Biden ticket as a fallback?
I didn't read the particular article that you've read the headline from, but let me say this. I have been fighting the banks at least, no, longer than that, 25, I'm going back at least since the early 90s. 95 was when we started the bankruptcy wars, when the big banks, mostly credit card companies, figured out they could boost their profits. This is such a stunner. They could boost their profits by squeezing the families who filed for bankruptcy. And bankruptcy was a big part of my research. My families go broke. The principal reasons, as our research showed, is that people were getting crushed by medical debts. They were getting crushed because it was a job loss and they borrowed money to try to keep themselves afloat and just couldn't get back to work in time. Or there was a death or divorce in the family and it just lost the income, went into debt, and all of those tangled in with, frankly, they got cheated, a lot of them, on credit cards that looked like 2% interest rate and turned out to be 52% interest rate. So I got in those fights and I've been in those fights ever since. For me, it's always been about trying to find the most effective way to fight back against giant financial institutions that just the ones that want to try to boost their profits by squeezing people harder, by tricking them, by trapping them, by fooling them. And I've stayed on them. I do this every day in the United States Senate. I try to hold all corporate executives accountable, but since I sit on the banking committee, one of the groups I get to have pay special attention to are the banks. I torched the CEO of Wells Fargo so badly the guy had to resign. And that was okay with me. I thought it was the right thing to do. So all I can say is, look at my history. If I have, if I'm a secret friend of these guys, someone needs to tell them. Because we've been in this, and do understand this, because I actually think this is an important part of it. I do not want to close down the banks. I don't want to close down finance. I understand how finance works. Finance is an important part of keeping our economy going. I just want a level playing field. I just want a playing field where people don't get cheated. I just want a playing field where the big banks have not figured out, if we can trick you in this particular way, then we can boost our profits up. So for me, I used to make this argument over and over, and I'll make it again. If you're a bank that basically follows the rules, if you're a bank that's not trying to make your profits by scamming people, by making them think they bought a credit card that has this interest rate and it really has this interest rate, or has a bunch of hidden fees, or has an accelerator in it. If you're somebody who's willing to play straight up, you should love me, right? Because if everybody follows the rules, then you're at no comparative disadvantage. The world you should hate is the world where people get to cheat. Because if you're not a cheater, it's not only that your customers get drawn off to those people, your whole business model is in trouble because you're competing against cheaters. What I want markets that are level playing fields, that people can walk in, they can know what it is they're getting, and then they make their own decision. And look, some people make good decisions, some people, I get it, sometimes may not make good decisions, but that's for them to do. The job of the government, the job of the regulator, should be to make sure that it is a level playing field. And that's what I fight for every day, and I've been doing it for a long, long time. And I'm going to keep right on doing it. So how's that?
So did you feel like Senator Warren's answer to your question satisfied, even fit the framing?
You know, I want to give her the benefit of the doubt. It's possible she forgot that I asked a question, but she did. Yeah, she definitely did not answer the question that I asked at the end. She kind of moved around the beginning of my question and talked about, how she did with banks. And that's, I understand that. It's a very, it's a candidate stump speech. You kind of have to pivot. But yeah, she definitely didn't answer my question.
Yeah. What would she have had to say to kind of satisfy that for you?
She would have had to say, of course, Alex, I'll never abandon my values and run with the centrist Joe Biden. Yeah, because to me that would be a betrayal of her values, of my trust in her. And I would just really like to see her come out and come out against some of these allegations that I believe that her staff has orchestrated, to be honest. But like I said, she's like her and Bernie, number 1 and 2.
You just watched Status Coup's In the Field coverage with me, live on the ground from Iowa. We can't do this without your support, so make sure to like, share, subscribe, and become a member at statuscoup.com.
First of all, can we just say, you should become a member just for Marcus's pink blazer. Can we just give it up for the man? It's freezing in Iowa, by the way, and he's working hard. So thank you to Marcus for that great reporting. Got the pink blazer, got the white blazer. It's just wonderful to look at, to tell you the truth. And he's covering more Warren stuff today. We got Biden we're going to be covering, and he's in Warren. He's in Iowa till the caucus. I might go out there to join him, depending on a few things. So definitely sign up. Statuscoup.com/join. This is the only way we could keep reporting in the field. It's through you. So statuscoup.com/join. Sign up for as low as $5 a month. It makes a big difference, and you get great bonus content as well. So a few things. Obviously, politicians dodge questions all the time, but when you have to think about the last week, when you desperately stab your ally in the front, not in the back, in the front. Thank you, Andy P., $10, who says, thank you, Marcus. Hopefully he's watching and hears you. Thank you, Nick, $5. When you stab your ally in the front, when you then in the debate double down on that, then do this theatrical thing at the end where you basically yell at him. Microphone's right in front of you. I don't think she's a stupid woman. She knew that could get picked up. When this is not being discussed at all, Elizabeth Warren, who entered politics because of Joe Biden's bankruptcy bill. That is what she first went, before she was even a senator, to debate Joe Biden on the bankruptcy bill. She hasn't laid a finger on Joe Biden in any of the debates. Barely has challenged anything about him. She hasn't brought up the bankruptcy bill, which you would assume if she's trying to win, she would want to contrast with Joe Biden. I don't recall her going after him on the bankruptcy bill. The person who went after Joe Biden the hardest was Kamala Harris. And she went up. But unfortunately, she had no conviction. She had no policies that you actually could believe she'd stick with. So she went down after that. You would think that Warren, who has legitimate policy disagreements with Joe Biden, that she's trying to show, well, I could take on Trump. She hasn't taken on the front runner in the primary. So with all of this happening, with her planting this with CNN, with her then acting like a victim, with her then essentially calling Bernie Sanders a liar during the debate, Bernie says, I didn't say it. She says, I disagreed. There's obviously a lot of political chatter going around that Warren and Biden made a deal. It doesn't necessarily have to be a direct deal. It doesn't mean that they actually met and discussed this recently. It doesn't mean that they've agreed to something. What I mean is, it could just be that there's a bit of a wink and a nod. There were reports in 2016 that if Biden ran, he was highly considering Warren as his vice president. Warren's campaign could know that if they did something that might help Joe Biden by default, because it has helped Joe Biden, taking Bernie's campaign's attention off Joe Biden for several days to have to defend this nonsense. Joe Biden won't forget that. Might not be a deal, but more of a educated guess. If from Warren's campaign, if we do this, we're moving up the ranks. He'll remember us. So when a voter, she's not a journalist. I saw somebody like she should have pushed back on her. Like, she's just a normal person. Maybe it's not easy to ask a question in front of so many people. So I don't blame her for not grilling Elizabeth Warren. I blame the journalists because they should be asking this and challenging her. Elizabeth Warren could have easily said no. You know how many times Elizabeth Warren said, I'm not running for president? And then ran for president? She could have easily said, no, I have no desire to be his vice president. Politicians do that all the time. And then guess what? They change their mind. And whatever. She could have easily said no and put that to bed. And still, she has shown she does not have the courage of her conviction. She could have easily said it now. And then if Biden offers it to her, to hell with it. I want the power. And by the way, that's not a Warren thing. That's politicians in general. Men, women, they all say no. But she chose to just pivot and not even answer the question. And I got news for you. I know that the establishment thinks that by any means necessary, taking out Bernie, propping up Warren with this nonsense, by any means necessary, that it will help them prop up Bernie. But they're also not realizing they're risking gravely weakening whoever the nominee is if it's not Bernie, because I'm not calling for you to do this. I want to be clear. But from what I'm seeing on Twitter and online and just knowing Bernie Sanders supporters, there are Bernie supporters that if it came down to it, if it's not Bernie, if they thought it was a fair primary, that they would hold their nose and vote for whoever it is because they don't want Trump to have another 4 years. I think that's the majority of Bernie supporters. But if they feel that electoral politics don't matter, the movements don't matter because it's all rigged, it's the media, it's the DNC, and I'm about to show you another ridiculous thing with the DNC. Yeah, people might not vote or vote third party. I'm not calling for you to do that. I'm just speaking reality. And by the way, credit to my lovely girlfriend, who, by the way, is a huge champion of the coup. She's in the super chat right now. She's always giving me great ideas. She pointed out, if Elizabeth Warren was so offended by Bernie Sanders, if Elizabeth Warren was so triggered and so, woke back mountain about this whole thing, why is it that when Bernie Sanders had a heart attack, she was the first to send his whole campaign, like, pies and pies of pizza? You might say, Jordan, that's whatever. That doesn't mean Bernie didn't say it. She was just being nice. I don't know. If you're so upset, if you're so woke, if you're so offended, if you also think that Bernie's campaign is playing dirty because Warren's campaign thinks Bernie's campaign is playing dirty, you could have called him. But she took the step to send him pies and pies of pizza to his campaign. I find that interesting. I don't know. I don't know if Woke Back Mountain was mine. I hope I coined it. Have you heard that before? All right, so I'm taking credit. Woke Back Mountain is mine. I have a patent. That's it. So, it's just ridiculous. And by the way, oh, we just got 2 new members. Wow. Welcome to the Media Revolution. Martin. Welcome, Ryan. We are now at 812 Status Coup members. Guys, we're not telling you what we're going to do. We're showing you what we're going to do. This reporting is not cheap. It's not cheap to have Marcus out there. It's not cheap to send me places. It's not cheap to send Jen places. It's not cheap to pay Colin. It's not cheap. We now finally are... we're doing a slightly better, so we're actually putting money into advertising, which is also not cheap. So I hope you guys know we're trying to build. We're not trying to build, a show here to have fun and rip the establishment. We're trying to build an actual network. We're trying to hire other reporters. We're trying to hire other producers. We're trying to do it taking not a dime from massive Democratic Party donors, which some networks have taken that dirty money. We're trying to do it without taking a dime from Republican donors. We're trying to do it. I'm not saying trying. We are doing it without taking it from the banks, the oil companies, the pharma companies, Silicon Valley, big real estate, all of those. We don't want your money. We would rather work. Well, we, meaning I, Jen, the others, we'd rather work 7 days a week. We'd rather outwork everybody else. We'd rather scratch and claw our way to the top, because when we're at the top, and we will be at the top, it's very liberating when you don't have to answer to a goddamn person but the audience. I don't have to answer to anyone but you, and that is a sweet, sweet thing. Thank you, Brian. $1.99. Did Jayapal endorse Bernie in response to Warren? I don't really know. I don't have any intel on that. I'm assuming it was in the works, but it shows you that Warren's attacks, if Warren's attacks didn't work, listen, I like Jayapal, but she's a politician. If there was something to this, and if it worked, she would not put her neck on the line for Bernie Sanders. So, I don't know. Joel Sass, $2 with the, is that a duck or a snake? I can't tell. A lot of snake emojis, I think. Oh my golly, wow. $5. You should read piece by Politico. Sanders runs into resistance after Warren's dispute. Him telling her at a debate, let's do this another time, is sexist. You know what? I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I don't really care. Okay? And I say this clearly as somebody who myself has been smeared in the Me Too movement. I support the Me Too movement. I know women that have been sexually assaulted. But I think there is a dangerous conflation happening right now between championing the victims, women and men, because men have been assaulted too, of assault, of harassment, of inappropriate behavior in the workplace, those things. I think there's a very gross conflation going on right now between that, which to me, from what I I mean, I'm not a woman, but how I interpreted Me Too was it was really about that. That is being conflated in a very dangerous way with he said, she said, gender identity stuff. Because I'm seeing, to me, faux feminists, and I don't mean to mansplain, but I'm seeing faux feminists on the internet being like, oh, you know, believe women, and talking about what was said between Bernie and Warren. No, that's not what believe women is, my understanding of the Me Too movement was about. To me, you don't just believe a woman who claims that a man said something because she's a woman and society has elevated men. That's ridiculous. There are women who commit murder. There are women who kidnap people. There are women complicit in crime, just like there are men. It's ridiculous. Martin Luther King wasn't like, believe black people. You don't toss away all critical thinking faculties because of the gender of a person or the color of a person and give them special benefit of the doubt. I am inclined as a man, if I hear an accusation of assault, harassment, these things, I am inclined to believe it. I hate to borrow from Ronald Reagan here because I don't borrow anything, but I also want to verify it. I also want to hear what are the facts, what is the context, what happened. So you could instinctually say, you know, well, it's very hard for women to come out. And I'm talking about the bad stuff, assault, harassment, these kinds of things. I'm inclined to believe it because there are very few women who make false accusations. But I also want to know what happened, because you don't want to get into this situation where you're just, because of society, overall general society failures to protect women and believe women, you don't want to get into this tendency to just, the man is guilty no matter what, without knowing the facts. I believe that for assault and harassment, even though I am inclined to believe a woman, I want to know what the facts are. But I have not at all, in the case of a private meeting, oh, let's believe women. Get the fuck out of here. I'm going to believe a woman who literally wrote down that she's a Native American to advance in her career? Let's just automatically believe that woman? Are you out of your mind? By the way, whether you think the Native American thing is legitimate or not, if she became the nominee, oh my God. Donald Trump and the RNC have $200 million. They have $200 million to go. I mean, they could spend $200 million calling Bernie Sanders a communist. I don't think it's going to be effective. But $200 million to point out the multiple times Elizabeth Warren has lied? When you already have a racist base? Woo! Carol Edwards, $100. God bless you in the super chat, Carol. Let me know, by the way, if you're getting my emails, because I emailed you the other day to give you an update. Carol, thank you so much. Generous as always. Really appreciate it. So, enough with the believe women. No, I don't believe any woman automatically who claims a man said something. Okay? If Elizabeth Warren would have said, Sean Hannity in a private conversation told me a woman can't win, I'd be more inclined to believe that. But it's still a he said, she said. But basically, these faux feminists just want everyone, man and woman, just to toss aside your critical thinking skills and believe women, even if this woman has lied. That's not equality, that's stupidity. I got one more for you, Marcus, in the field, and keep signing up as new members. We got 3 new members already today. We are now at 812 members. Our goal for the end of the month is 900. It might be too bold, but we're 88 away, 88 new members away from 900. Let's see. Marcus interviewed some other supporters in Iowa, including the one that asked Warren the question that she dodged.
Marcus Ely coming to you live from Iowa. It's really white here. And I'm not just talking about the snow. But I'm at the Elizabeth Warren event. Um, and we're going to go talk to some of the people and see how they're feeling post debate. This is the first event she's had since the debate. So we're going to figure out and try to gauge where folks are at in regards to what happened and how it played to her supporters. What we saw at the debate was the huge kerfuffle between Bernie and Warren, and then all this long, dragged out drama that's happened since then. I was kind of wondering what your take is on that. Is it even anything worth paying attention to, or?
I think that whatever their difference is, this is largely a media created story to try and distract from the real issues here. And I'm sure that whichever candidate comes out on top, they'll each support each other in the long run in the race to beat Trump.
Yeah. I mean, because one thing's for sure, Bernie is the front runner right now, and Warren's still back and I think tied for third in New Hampshire, according to the latest Emerson polls that just came out. So the media created event, and I definitely 100% agree with you that this is a media created event. Maybe a little bit of the Warren campaign kind of putting that out there, because there are all of the sources that put that out there that weren't in the room were of the Warren campaign. So that lady dropped her glove, and I want to tell her, and it's distracting me. And now she's picking it up. Okay, but I wanna kind of ask you. Do you think that any of that moved you at all in any way, shape, or form, or do you think it's going to move people that are less informed than yourself?
It's not something I really focused on in the debate. It could influence people who are swayed by like personality when it comes to the issues. I think those are more of the standout reasons to vote for someone, but someone might see that interaction and perceive it negatively and be less inclined to vote for those candidates that might have tried to cause a little scandal.
I would just really like to see her come out and come out against some of these allegations that I believe that her staff has orchestrated, to be honest. But like I said, she's like, her and Bernie, number 1 and 2, are floating up there for me. So I would like to give her the benefit of the doubt. As a woman who experiences sexism every day, like all women, I want her to acknowledge that there's probably a miscommunication, as with most fights, whether it's with your boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend, your mom. There's always like a sentence that isn't understood by both people. It's understood differently by both people. And like a lot of people have said, it's probably not that one person's wrong, one person's right. It's that one person was in the mindset to understand a sentence differently than the other person who was in a different mindset. So I would like to see Senator Warren make that correction publicly so that we can put this issue to rest.
All right. So kind of looking forward here. Elizabeth Warren hasn't really moved in the polls since then. Neither has Bernie. Bernie's still, well, actually, he moved up +2 in New Hampshire. He's first, and she's third in the latest Emerson polling, tied for third with Buttigieg in New Hampshire. And the polls for Iowa are coming out probably tomorrow, if not over the weekend. So looking forward, what do you think we'll see coming from the Warren campaign? Because she seems to be running away from this whole issue.
Yeah, it seems to me that the Warren campaign definitely wanted this to result in a positive boost for her in the polls. It seems to be doing the opposite from what I've seen. Even CNN themselves are reluctant to admit, but they've been showing polls on TV that show Bernie going up, Warren going down. And it's unfortunate that that's how it happened. I feel like I feel like it's more likely that it's a couple people who have the ear of Warren, who are around her, who are making this decision for her. Specifically just people talking about in her campaign that I've spoken to seem to be saying when they're knocking doors. It's both men and women who are saying they're scared of a woman being president, or they don't think that a woman can be, and that I think has scared her staff so much that they needed to make it a more public issue, and this wasn't the right way to do it. In my opinion, there are other ways to do it than divide the progressive pool of people who are like me, right on the edge.
And let's be honest, neither one of them is winning without the other's delegates, because if it goes to a contested convention, which is likely to happen, neither one of the two is going to get a lot of super delegates. So this whole thing just clears the way for Joe Biden.
Yeah, I think Joe's sleeping well and peacefully.
Would that be why you mentioned the Politico article in your question?
Absolutely, yeah. When I was trying to do my own research, and I was like looking online, is there any like history of Biden ever saying anything about her being a VP? And then I found that article, and where he very clearly states his reasons why, and it's what makes a lot of people in this cycle worried that is maybe, I don't want to say that it was being set up to be that way as like a fallback. I would prefer to think that it was a few ambitious staffers who made the decision to leak to CNN the night before the debate. But like I said, trying to give the benefit of the doubt, and I really hope Senator Warren comes through with a peace treaty.
All right. What did you make of the whole incident between her and Bernie Sanders in that room?
I'm sad to see it anytime, because I think Democrats need to unite. So I don't know. I have a hard time with Bernie anyway, because he's not a real Democrat. So yeah, I don't know. I'm still questioning what that was all about. And I think she was telling the truth.
So what makes
a liar? I think it was him.
So what makes, so yeah, somebody's lying basically, because they both got two different sides of the story. But what specifically about Bernie makes you think that he's not a real Democrat?
Well, I think that I would have been happier with him had he done a better job of endorsing Hillary last time.
But he did 40 events for her.
He did events, but I think he never really looked in the camera and said to his followers, okay, you guys know this is reality. I'm not going to win, but we can't let that other guy win. You've got to go out and vote. And instead, I think a lot of them just plain didn't vote.
And twice as many Bernie people voted for Hillary as Hillary people voted for Obama in 2008. Meaning the Bernie people showed up and coalesced more than Hillary people did for Obama in 2008.
Okay, I don't know that statistic, so I'm going to listen to you and believe you. So.
You just watched Status Coup's In the Field coverage with me, live on the ground from Iowa. We can't do this without your support, so make sure to like, share, subscribe, and become a member at statuscoup.com.
Great work by Marcus out on the campaign trail. Definitely keep signing up. We're at 812 wonderful Status Coup members. We'd like to get as many as we can get today. So if you're not a member, it's the only way we could grow without taking the dirty corporate money, which we refuse to do. I plan on going out to Iowa and New Hampshire, which costs money. So definitely, if you have the means, you could become a member for as low as $5 a month. What's so interesting to me, and this narrative, again, you could tell when you're interviewing an MSNBC or CNN viewer. When you provide them the facts, well, he went around, did like almost 40 events for Hillary Clinton, who, by the way, Bernie Sanders is not a fan of Hillary Clinton. I covered events he did on her behalf, and you could see he was struggling. But he was a team player and did it. He's not a Democrat, but he did a unity tour and dragged Know Your Values Tom Perez with him. He sponsored a bill with Chuck Schumer. And by the way, Bernie has done a lot of this at the expense of his base, because his base was not happy about these things. But their critique is, well, he didn't look into the camera and say it. He didn't look at the camera and say it. He told his supporters at the DNC convention, support Hillary Clinton. He told his supporters at these events that he went out doing for Hillary Clinton. He did a lot more events for Hillary Clinton than Hillary Clinton did for Barack Obama in 2008. But he's not a messiah. And he said, I can't force them to do it. It's the arrogance of these older people. It's the arrogance of these media outlets. It's the arrogance of these journalists they are the ones interfering with democracy, right? They keep talking about Russia. CNN, MSNBC, The Washington Post, The New York Times, all of them are interfering with democracy by issuing and executing propaganda 24/7 a day against one candidate. That is the interference. If Bernie Sanders loses on his own volition, so be it. I have a hard time believing on the issues he would lose to Donald Trump. But they have this arrogance that let's rig the primary. And it is rigged. And I'm about to show you another clip where a DNC advisor, no, CNN does not disclose it, is on CNN trampling Bernie Sanders and the Bernie bros. It's not disclosed that she's a DNC advisor. It's not disclosed she was paid $10,000 so far this campaign by the DNC. So you're going to rig the primary? You're going to disenfranchise his voters by rigging the primary? By issuing propaganda? By tossing on screen as a fact and a news story that Bernie Sanders told Warren a woman can't win? A total BS story, not verifiable, not journalism. I would say it if it was about Bernie. I would say it about anyone. Who knows what was said between two people in a room? The only thing you could report is one side's version of what was said. So the arrogance to basically rig it against one candidate and then turn around and say, well, that candidate and his supporters, they didn't do enough for the one that rigged it. That's like saying for the person the arsonist who lit your fire on your house on fire, but then they show up to help you clean it up. Well, you should take that person out to a nice dinner. Nonsensical, ridiculous, establishment nonsense. Thank you, Matty Perry, $4.99 in the Super Chat. Warren's exactly what I've been saying for months. She's an opportunist. I mentioned this Warren running for Biden's VP over 7 months ago on my channel. You were omnipresent, my friend. You got it right. Thank you, Bob K. $5. Proud member number 200 here. Thanks, Jordan and crew. Keep up the great work. Thank you, Bob, for being one of the OGs. Thank you for the support. So, while Warren's thing clearly failed, I mean, Bernie has not dipped in the polls. He's still getting big crowds. He's not dipped in the polls. Warren, there's only one poll, a California poll, that shows that she benefited based on this ridiculous thing she put out there. I mean, this, according to Survey USA, she's up 7 points in California in a post-debate poll. I mean, the poll should be stated, 29% of those polled were Republicans. There were more women polled, but whatever, she's up. I don't think she's going to win California, but she's up in the polls. Other polls show, I mean, New Hampshire, she was still at 14%, Bernie at 23%. This was taken before, during, and after the debate. Bernie at 23%. In that same poll, Bernie is actually within the margin of error in voters over 50, which is huge for Bernie Sanders. I mean, his campaign's biggest weakness is over 50. He's at 18%, and Emerson is a good poll. I have been consistent. Emerson is one of the only polls that actually has a close to even split between those polled under 50 versus those polled over 50. Monmouth, Quinnipiac, those kind of pollsters, wildly oversample older voters. And Reuters came out with the first national poll after the debate. Bernie's support was unchanged. Warren actually lost 3. So it didn't work. But CNN is still pushing this story. So I'm about to show you a clip that is insane on so many different levels. First of all, And if you go to Status Coup's Twitter, which you should follow if you're not following at Status Coup, follow us on Twitter. We already showed last week that the DNC has a senior advisor to Tom Perez on CNN, often, trashing Bernie Sanders. She's been paid $10,000 so far this campaign cycle. She was Hillary Clinton's a campaign spokeswoman for Hillary Clinton in 2016. She is currently on the payroll of the DNC. It's not disclosed, none of it. Let's take a look at what she said this morning. And then, at the end of the clip, listen to what the anchor says.
I disagree, because for a lot of women, and I do think that Senator Sanders and his campaign very much underestimate how much anger there still is on the part of a lot of women who, whether it was the Bernie bros who attacked them and Senator Sanders did nothing to try. I mean, literally people were being threatened. It was vicious in 2016.
Well, you're saying they're still angry the next 2 weeks going forward.
I'm saying that what I think his campaign isn't understanding is what's bad for him about this is this. He came into this race with a lot of baggage from 2016 about the way women were treated by the Bernie bros, by his campaign. I've spoken to women who worked on his campaign in 2016. It was not a welcoming environment for a lot of women. And so to then have that kind of exchange with Senator Warren, who a lot of us at least respect, even if you're not going to vote for her, you respect her, that doesn't look good for him. And that
she should have called him out that night.
Well, I think she
on
was
camera in front of millions of people.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, look, I was like, I don't think about this.
I have I mean, I'm eating popcorn, but no, I'm willing to believe a lot of unsavory things about Senator Sanders. I actually don't, it doesn't ring true to me that he believes a woman can't win the presidency. I don't think he's changed his mind about that. Your point is well taken about how some of his supporters have treated women in the past. And I do think there's probably anger about that. But look, there's two people in the room. I don't want to act naive about like where this story might have come from. Probably not from the side that looks really bad during this exchange. And he should have just said, well, you called me a sexist on national TV. We don't actually know. But like, we also do know that Senator Warren has stretched the truth on several major stories, including her heritage, the wine cave most recently, her employment in the past. That should be part of the calculation here. And the fact that this story seems to wildly benefit her and give her this moment in the spotlight to make the speech that she made.
And we can't actually know what was said, but there is a possibility that as these, it's really amazing that these senators are going to come off the trail, and then Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg have this tremendous opportunity to be there in Iowa. I wonder what you think about how the president views this, Congressman, because it seems like he's been more worried about Joe Biden.
There's so many things remarkable about that clip, but let's start with the most remarkable. CNN, I think it was Sunday. Yes, Sunday. Or, I don't know, last weekend. CNN had a reporter that reported 4 sources indicate that Bernie Sanders in a private conversation said a woman cannot win the presidency, a woman cannot beat Donald Trump. They reported it not as Elizabeth Warren is alleging that Bernie Sanders said it. They just reported Bernie Sanders said this. The definition of a he said, she said story. A CNN anchor literally just said, and I quote, "We can't know what was said." Whether intentionally or not, that CNN anchor literally just retracted or debunked her own network's bullshit. And she's not the first. Erin Burnett, to her credit, a few days ago said, Elizabeth Warren's campaign clearly leaked this story to CNN. You got two Dumb and Dumber, Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo. Well, we don't know the context. It's not just that you don't know the context, you don't know what was actually said. And now you have a CNN anchor saying, well, we can't know what was actually said. Then why was it reported on your news network as a fact? That is then weaponized against one candidate when you don't even know if it's true. So that's mind-blowing. You literally have CNN retracting or debunking its own factual story right in front of your eyes, and no one gives a damn. Secondly, Karen Finney was a spokesperson for Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. Okay? She's bringing up the Bernie bros, right? And by the way, to be clear, it would be disingenuous. Of course, there are male people on Twitter that support Bernie Sanders that might go over the line at times. Same thing for supporters of Kamala Harris. Same thing for supporters of Joe Biden. Same thing for supporters of Hillary Clinton. A candidate is not responsible for their supporters' tweets. And Bernie Sanders in the past has come out and said we should be talking about policy and people's records, and disowns any types of sexism, misogyny. They try to wrap around Bernie Sanders' head what Bernie's people on Twitter say. Well, maybe Bernie supporters on Twitter wouldn't be criticizing Hillary Clinton or Elizabeth Warren if the campaign wasn't rigged against the candidate. And everything I've seen critical of Elizabeth Warren has been on her moonwalking on Medicare for All, her not showing up for the people of Standing Rock, her voting for Donald Trump's military budget. You're a public official. You're running for president. Cry me a fucking river if people say negative things about your record. I mean, this is ridiculous. And by the way, are they Bernie bro? Are these the same Bernie bros, these sexist Bernie bros who are going after Joe Biden right now? They're going after candidates for their record. It's called a primary. But because these candidates, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Warren, Harris, the whole neoliberal lot of them, they don't want to actually have to address their neoliberal record. They don't want to have to actually battle on the field of ideas, so they scream sexism, they scream racism, and that's it. And by the way, thank you for the super chat, JK, $2. I mean, we had to deal with Correct the Record. Not only did CNN not disclose that Karen Finney is a paid advisor at the DNC. She's a paid advisor to Tom Perez. It's right here, folks. Tom Perez announces DNC veteran Karen Finney as a senior advisor. Bring her extensive experience as an independent political consultant, communicator, blah, 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 blah. Help engage base voters in 2018 and look ahead at DNC plans for 2020. She's on the payroll. Need more? I mean, this might be outdated, but 2020 cycles, she's gotten $10,000 from the DNC so far. So if a DNC is neutral as they put people on CNN and other networks to bash Bernie Sanders, bash the Bernie bros, scream sexism, this goes out to millions of people on CNN and then on social media. You want to tell me this is neutrality? And then the DNC, if Bernie isn't the nominee, are going to rail against the Bernie bros for not uniting. Well, why are people going to unite against the very people that screwed their candidate? You want to talk about the sanctity of our elections and the big bad Russian boogeyman? What CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, and the DNC is 100 times more powerful than any fake Facebook pages up from Russia. Okay? But it's even more ironic than that. If you followed WikiLeaks, by the way, Julian Assange is still in prison in the UK. He's facing extradition hearing next month. It's disgraceful. As far as we could tell, it's already been rubber stamped. He's going to be extradited to the U.S. unless something radically changes before then. Frankly, I think Bernie has been weak on this. He hasn't given a straight answer on whether Assange should be extradited to the U.S. So if I had the benefit of interviewing Bernie, I would challenge him on that. Bernie hasn't given an answer. The other candidates are totally for it. I don't really know what Warren has said. She probably said nothing. I don't want to wrongly state. I believe Tulsi Gabbard has came out against this. So credit to Tulsi Gabbard on this. Bernie Sanders, 100% wrong for not coming out in support of Julian Assange. No sugarcoating it. But the irony of all this person on CNN, a DNC senior advisor on the DNC's payroll, the neutral DNC, WikiLeaks showed in 2016 it was Hillary Clinton's campaign, who Karen Finney was a spokeswoman for, that created the Bernie Bros thing in the first place. They created it, and then they planted it with Politico and other networks. So the very people that created this out of thin air, and again, it's not to say there are never any Bernie supporters on social media that cross a line. I'm sure there are. I'm not a hall monitor. I can't monitor everyone. Most of the Bernie supporters I see are very aggressive on policy, not anything other than policy. But have any of them ever said anything demeaning to a woman that they shouldn't have? Of course not. Of course they have. I've seen vicious things said by Hillary Clinton supporters about me. When I was falsely smeared of something I did not do, there was Neera Tanden from the Center of American Progress tweeting out #Jordan2. I don't know if you knew that. Neera Tanden, when I was falsely accused of a heinous, violent act, to capitalize on that, to basically neutralize and further what they thought was putting me in my journalistic grave, sorry that it didn't work out for you, was tweeting out #Jordan2. David Brock's Correct the Record were doing coordinated tweets against me during that time. Jen could tell you about it. She has them. It's water under the bridge now. I don't care. But these people are not saints. But what's so amazing to me about this is, you want to talk about free advertising Donald Trump got in 2016? This is all in-kind contribution to Joe Biden. So they don't have to talk about Biden's record on Social Security, on war, on crime bill, on Glass-Steagall, on welfare reform. We don't have to talk about any of that. Let's put on a DNC consultant. We won't disclose that she works for the DNC. Tom Perez could still go around leading with his values, pretending they're neutral. Yeah, maybe they're not putting in writing in emails negative things about Bernie Sanders anymore. They're taking it one step further. They're just putting their paid people on CNN and elsewhere to trash Bernie Sanders and making sure that the networks don't say they're from the DNC. And frankly, I know Bernie Sanders' campaign is fighting a lot of battles here, but they should call out the DNC for this shit. Mr. Methuselah, $25. Liawatha needs to be asked if she cares so much for the working person. Why did she vote for NAFTA 2.0? Thank you for all the work your staff do, Jordan. Why do you gotta make me laugh? That is amazing. Liawatha. I'm stealing Mr. Methuselah. Actually, I'm going to take a screenshot so I can give you credit when I use this. That is a brilliant nickname. Hey, I covered it earlier this week. CNN barely covered it. They just forced through NAFTA 2.0, which is a disaster and is, by the way, going to help Trump get elected. Because let me explain how this works. And thank you, Michael Chavez, $10 in the super chat. Warren dilutes, confuses voters about Sanders, Medicare for All, and Sanders' platform. This manufactured feud dilutes and smears feminism and #MeToo. Talk to friends, coworkers about Sanders, especially non-first-time voters. I agree with you. I already pointed that out, that I think they are bastardizing Me Too for their own political purposes. But Why does this Warren vote on NAFTA help Trump so much? Because, and I showed this to you already, but I'm going to show it again. Trump is a master at manipulation. This is what he said at a recent speech. For decades, career politicians promised to defend the workers of Ohio, and then they went to Washington and voted for the same globalist policies that devastated your communities and shipped away your jobs. The Democrat politicians we are fighting today are the same ones who took the sledgehammer to Ohio jobs in factories and destroyed your factories and destroyed your jobs. They are losing and we are winning. Well, Donald Trump is successfully going to be able to frame and spin USMCA, this deal with Mexico and China, the new NAFTA, they call it, as keeping his promise. The new NAFTA is the old NAFTA in reality. It's not even enforceable. The wages for workers in Mexico and China are still going to be so low that our corporations are still going to offshore to Mexico and China. Their climate change is not mentioned once. Elizabeth Warren claims to be a Green New candidate. She just voted for something that does not mention climate change once. It has barely any environmental regulation because, quote, it's a modest improvement. Yeah, the planet is on fire. We don't have time for modest improvements. We need radical change, radical action. But if Trump goes up against Warren, how's she going to attack Trump on trade? Which, by the way, is why Trump won in China, in Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, Pennsylvania. It wasn't Russia. Read the exit polls. I've read them. Top issue, trade and immigration. That's why he won. Warren's going to go after him when she just voted for his trade deal. Biden's going to go after him. Oh, my God. Can you imagine? This is what Trump is saying in speeches. For decades, career politicians promised to defend the workers of Ohio, and they then went to Washington and voted for the same globalist policies that devastated your communities and shipped away your jobs. The Democrat politicians we are fighting today are the same ones who took a sledgehammer. If he's saying this in speeches, wait till he says it in Joe Biden's face on a debate stage, because Joe Biden is that Democratic politician who did that. And I've seen the living corpses. I've seen it in Michigan, I've seen it in Wisconsin, I've seen it in Ohio, I've seen it in Pennsylvania, I've seen it in Illinois, I've seen it everywhere. Closed down factories and communities devastated because those factories were the jobs, and when those jobs went, there was no customers to sustain the rest of the community, and businesses went out. Closed down storefronts, you know what I'm talking about, probably have them in your areas. The only candidate on the merits that can go after Trump on this new NAFTA is Bernie. Laguna Babe, $5. Bernie hater told me Sanders takes dark money. Yeah, they're calling our revolution dark money because our revolution is not disclosing who its donors are, and I've been critical of that. But Sanders isn't taking money from our revolution. Sanders is separate from our revolution, but technically our revolution is tweeting out, they're doing social media campaigning for Bernie. So if you want to call that taking dark money, I guess. I mean, there's no direct donations from our revolution to Bernie Sanders, but our revolution is on digital and social media campaigning for Bernie Sanders, and they should reveal who their top donors are. They say that they're going to update the list soon, so I take them at their word because it's a good organization, but I don't like that they till now have not been revealing their top donors. So if that's what she's talking about, she's half right. Hey, we got to call out Bernie. It's not specifically Bernie because he founded the organization, but he's not involved day to day. But our revolution should reveal their donors. I mean, we can't be critical of everyone else, but not critical of our own. So we've gone through CNN's behavior. We've gone through Elizabeth Warren's behavior. We've gone through Joe Biden's lies. I want to end today. Not end, because we're going to do a quick question and answer after. I got to go to my nephew's birthday party. It's Pete Buttigieg's birthday, so I got to give him a birthday present. Do you want a birthday present? You want a birthday present? Pete? So, thanks to you guys. Recently, I was in South Bend, Indiana. We did a lot in just a few days. There's still stuff we haven't uploaded because we talked to so many people in just a few days. So I talked to a pastor, a former police officer, and a homeless person who was homeless while Pete was mayor and knows a lot about the homeless epidemic there. Because for those of you who say, don't bother on Pete anymore, whatever, well, he's still polling very high in Iowa and New Hampshire. So theoretically, it's not out of the question that he could win Iowa. So I want to play for you part 2 of an interview I did with a local pastor, a homeless person, as well as a former South Bend police officer. This was the first time the cameraman that we're using, his name's Jamal, was out with us. So there was it's you could hear it, but there was like a little bit of static. So apologies. We'll fix that for next time. But the message is important, and as far as I know, nobody else is doing this kind of in the field, in the trenches reporting to actually expose who these candidates actually are. So if you support this, we've gotten 3 new members so far during this show. We want to get this up before I sign off. Maybe we could get it up. We're at 812 now. Maybe we can get it up to 820 Status Coup members. So sign up if you can for as low as $5 a month. Let's take a look at part 2 of my interview with this local pastor, former police officer, and a person who was homeless as recently as a year ago.
Across the river from him all summer. So speed forward to the homeless thing, which has never been addressed. We had for 2 years, 40 people living under a viaduct right in basically the south part of your downtown. This stuff isn't rocket science, okay? We can do that. And the homeless issue, as you know, is more mental than it is this poor stuff, but there's never been a good way for those people who are the smartest kids in the class. You give us some money, we can put a dent and start the process to solving that type of stuff, and it's never been done. So at the end of the day, I think it's a combination, and from my perspective, I think it's just an attitude of he doesn't understand. There's his life here, great, but this is city life. This is South Bend, and if you can't accomplish some simple problems to at least start to go into in South Bend, and you expect to do that across the country, it's just unfathomable of how it's got ascended to where he's at now. And good for him, he's working to try that. But I think the general public, and thank goodness for you guys to come here, because I've had dozens of calls. Hey, what's going on? I said, unless you come here and live it and breathe it and see it, you have no idea what's going on. So
I just want to say something before I forget. I'm 67 years old. It comes and goes. But you think about it. Here's a man, what is he, in his mid-30s?
37.
Here's a man who's 37 years old that doesn't know how to connect with black people. We saw the awkward scene with him, with Reverend Al Sharpton, with the soul food plate and a bottle of hot sauce prominent, okay? Like, hey, I like black people. So he's got and then so that didn't work. So now he's shown, somewhere, with a 40 ounce, of course you got to have it in a paper bag too, which, that's like racist, man. You don't like get that. So his answer is, instead of...
I'm just being one of the guys.
Well, but okay, so that failed. So what does he do? He goes and finds a handful of black people that he's given money to here, and he promotes them to black leaders, okay? And they say good stuff about them. So you got 5 or 6 people in a city that has 24% black population, and you get 6 or 7 people, okay, that say good stuff about him, and he's like, well, they just say good stuff about me. Here's the black. No, I mean.
And by the way, the national media then write stories. People say the black community doesn't like Pete Buttigieg. These black residents disagree.
Yeah, and then upon closer examination, you found that all of them either depend on their jobs or received grant money or some sort of compensation that they're beholden to him for. And that's the type of thing that's so maddening. I just want to touch on one thing too, his military record. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. And the thing that's so troubling, we thank him for his service, but think about this. This man served less than 9 months. 7 months was overseas, which is great. We appreciate that. But the question is, if our boot camp was 12 weeks. So what kind of boot camp did he go to in the 2 months before he went to Afghanistan? I mean, it was a resume move. The other thing you should understand, reservists don't deploy by themselves. They deploy with their unit. I mean, the things that he does, you could see are all to build an image. So it's like a facade. Rhodes Scholar, very bright guy, but upon closer examination, a lot, when he talks about what he's done in the city, you have better than 36% black poverty. Are you proud of that? And he says, I reduced it by 6%. So a little over a third of your black population lives in poverty, and you're cheering at a 6% reduction, if that. 24% black unemployment. I mean, it's just, he just doesn't get it. And so if you don't get it in 8 years as mayor, what are you going to do? What are you going to take training wheels to the White House and figure it out?
It's what's interesting to me, and I find this not just with Buttigieg, but other leaders around the country. I think in their mind, success is different than what working people think success is. So, for example, I think Buttigieg's vision of government and a successful mayorship, bringing more restaurants downtown, bringing more bars downtown, new parks, new recreation, more commerce downtown, bringing in business from out of state because you're building up South Bend. We saw last night around that downtown district, beautiful holiday lights and restaurants and bars, this and that. And I think that is then sent east to the media as he's revitalized South Bend. We hear a lot about that. Detroit's coming back. Well, 10 blocks are coming back in Detroit.
5 blocks at best.
Right. So it seems to me, because of that disconnect, because of his education, because of that lack of in the trenches experience, he doesn't realize that is excluding the majority of the population. I don't know if it seems to be a lack of regard, but also a kind of speaking a different language than average people.
But you have to understand, if you look at the Constitution of the United States, the whole concept was that those who are elected are not elected as leaders, but as representatives. They're supposed to represent. Who does he represent? A small percentage of elites? I mean, so if we're not supposed to have a caste system in this country. So all of a sudden now we have this Rhodes Scholar, Harvard-educated guy that's disconnected to not just black people, who thinks that, okay, I'll just get some paid black people to speak. That's the answer? No, the answer is, how about sitting down with people and getting some true input on what problems they face. Pete's problem is he wants to tell you what the answers are without knowing the people. How can someone tell you an answer to a problem when you don't know the people and the issues that they have? This is just ridiculous. You talk about the millions of TIF money that's been spent. Okay, so we have development downtown, so millions of TIF money spent, coupled with tax abatements, and he brags about, this new business is coming in. Well, the few high-tech jobs that come in, you have a school system that's failing here. The school board a few years ago changed the GPA to 1.6 so kids could play sports. So basically, you're raising, gladiators who will never succeed in college because of 1.6. Derek's son is in the NBA. You've got a son that
NFL.
I'm sorry,
NFL.
Yeah, and I've got his picture back there. And
the Chiefs, right?
Yeah, a son that just completed a whole tour, and went with his reserve unit overseas. Daughter that's a teacher, and so on. These are parents that connect with kids, and his kids can connect with people in the community, okay? Pete didn't have that. His dad was a Notre Dame professor. And obviously there was no real effort to connect him with the everyday people, which you and I would have. I mean, how, in this day and age, how could a 37-year-old man reach 37 and be a mayor of a city with 24% black population, I think 12% Hispanic, so almost 40% people of color, and he doesn't know how to relate to them?
Right. Larry, you have had a lot of experience with the homelessness here. It's obviously, you know, homelessness wasn't invented by Pete Buttigieg, but it seems like the question also is, why is there so much homelessness in a city that's being revitalized? Why is there such lack of opportunity if you're not a donor to him or you know, a business person coming in? I mean, I've spoken with African American citizens, but also white citizens around here, and saying there's no real jobs around here. What's been your experience with the mayor?
Thank you. I came here March of last year, and I'll tell you what, it really blew my mind what I walked into. I mean, I grew up in Indianapolis. You know, Indianapolis, you could lose your job on a Saturday. You could have another one by Monday, Tuesday at the latest. Here, I'm an experienced pressman. I've got several years of printing press experience and pre-press experience. It was almost impossible for me to find a job. Because what happens if you've got some ties with the right people in certain areas, I'll be nice, I'll say it that way. In certain areas, you get the opportunities. And being homeless for a while, I was homeless last year, and I'll tell you, if you talk about the revitalizing downtown and all that, where the bars and all the clubs and all that are, go 2 blocks on either side of that, west or east, you'll see some homeless. I can tell you that because I stayed 2 blocks over and on the side porch of a church when I was homeless. And there is never, I was actually, how can I say it? They talked about Tut Street having a weather amnesty program. I was there.
And that was owned by one of the mayor's cronies, Dave Matthews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mr. Matthews owned it. I can tell you right now, they were taking 35 men and 15 women every night. Okay, they were supposed to open at 8 o'clock in the evening. We were getting there at 6:30 just to wait so we could get in. And what would happen is they would take that many people in, but there were other areas of that building they had rented that they could have easily housed 150 altogether, no problem at all. And they never even touched those areas. What happened was they used basically the sales floor area and a couple of offices and the front restrooms to do this with. And there were a lot of people that I know of that couldn't make it in, you know, by the quote unquote cutoff time, so that they could get a place to stay that night. And the result was, I mean, we had what, two or three freeze to death last year. And, you know, I thank the Lord, you know, and Pastor Sims above everything, because I got here, found out they had a warming center here. Well, the only place you could go when you're homeless was to the library. You could go eat at one place, you know, at 8 o'clock in the morning, get that morning, you know, boiled egg and oatmeal, maybe get a shower, and then till lunchtime and dinner time, you had to find some place to be. And a lot of people went to the library. Now the library is closed. It's been moved to an interim location, 6 miles north of where it used to be. And what are the homeless going to do? They're going to travel 6 miles? It's impossible.
Well, the mayor's answer when presented with that question was, we'll give them bus passes. Well, you've got, the homeless have everything they own either on their back on a 2-wheel cart. So
we're going to give them bus passes to go 6 miles with their home, basically, or whatever they have.
they're everything they own to sit in another library instead of getting to the root of the problem that he said that he's been addressing.
One quick thing then, but the homeless thing has to do with when they built the homeless shelter. Notre Dame was very big behind that, but they didn't put it close to the campus. They put it on the south end of downtown. And I can tell you emphatically, my years at the police department, that as soon as that place opened, it was maxed. But I can tell you from the years that I was in the police department, dozens upon dozens upon dozens of people were giving a one-way ticket to South Bend to get out of their town because South Bend has the great homeless shelter and people have come here. And that has overtaxed the homeless shelter. It's gone to other places, and I can tell you from doing things in the community in the summer when businesses had, hey, I got a bunch of people in tents back here, literally 15 to 18 tents, and I'm not talking pump, I'm talking big family tents, and I went, hey, sorry, you're gonna have to leave, we're not kicking you out now, but by tomorrow you gotta be out. Every single one was not from South Bend. So you've had that influx of people, not only have had issues in South Bend, but across the Midwest of, hey, go to South Bend, that's the place to go. And so that's why you have such a huge amount of people now.
Well, the big thing is, I talked to several officers, like Pastor Sims says, we deal with SBPD. I have friends in different, locales around South Bend and so forth that I minister to. And I can honestly tell you, I was told that a lot of the immediate surrounding areas that didn't want the homeless running around in their area, their officers were told to bring them to South Bend. Well, it's like Derek just said, it's one of those things that's overtaxed, the Center for the Homeless. It's overtaxed the Hope. It's overtaxed all that. But the problem is Pete Buttigieg has never come up with a solution, okay? He has never come up with a solution, not just to feed them or house them for a night. He's never come up with a solution to help get them a jump start to getting back into a normal, productive life.
Have you seen? Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.
Seen that on CNN? I don't think so. So we'll upload that. We have other that we did like over an hour with the three of them. So we're going to upload that so you could watch in full. And always remember, share, share, share. Sharing is caring. We really, really appreciate it. So I have some. I'm advancing the story here. If you were with me in the beginning. So I'm going to show you the clip one more time, and then I have something new to tell you, which I didn't know.
I disagree, because for a lot of women, and I do think that Senator Sanders and his campaign very much underestimate how much anger there still is on the part of a lot of women who, whether it was the Bernie bros who attacked them and Senator Sanders did nothing to try. I mean, literally people were being threatened. It was vicious in 2016.
Well, you're saying they're still angry the next 2 weeks going forward.
I'm saying that what I think his campaign isn't understanding is what's bad for him about this is he came into this race with a lot of baggage from 2016 about the way women were treated by the Bernie bros, by his campaign. I've spoken to women who worked on his campaign in 2016. It was not a welcoming environment for a lot of women. And so to then have that kind of exchange with Senator Warren, who a lot of us at least respect, even if you're not going to vote for her, you respect her, that doesn't look good for him. And that
she should have called him out that night.
Well, I think she
on
was
camera in front of millions of people.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, look,
I was like, I don't think
Yeah.
about this.
I have I'm eating popcorn, but no.
So again, that's Karen Finney. She was a spokeswoman for Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. She is also a paid DNC advisor, right here. 2018, senior advisor for the Democratic National Committee to Tom Perez. She'll do extensive stuff for 2018 midterms, and then again for the DNC plans for 2020. She has made $10,000 so far this cycle, paid by the DNC. I didn't realize this. She also just became a CNN contributor. Paid CNN contributor. Isn't that interesting? Very excited to announce that I've officially joined CNN Politics as a CNN political contributor. Honored to join the team at such an important time. I shouldn't say just. This was in 2019. So a paid political contributor for CNN is also a paid senior advisor at the Democratic National Committee. Neutral, neutral, neutral. I assume nobody noticed this. But unless Tom Perez wants to tell me differently, OpenSecrets.com shows she got paid $10,000 from the DNC in the same time that she's a paid CNN contributor. As far as I could see, because I've seen her on CNN quite a few times, CNN doesn't mention at all that she is with the Democratic National Committee. And she's not on CNN. So, I don't know. I don't know. So, let's do some Q&A. If you can. Speak to me. Questions, comments, concerns before I go. Let's see. JK, Bernie Bros are racist female Bernie supporters. We reset that. Status quo. Did Jordan mention the gun nut rally in Virginia in today's stream? Missed the first hour or so. No, we haven't talked about that. Very, very dangerous thing going on tomorrow. State of emergency has been declared in Virginia for that. Hopefully, nothing violent happens, but there are armed militias preparing to go to Virginia against the governor's stated goals. So it's definitely dangerous there. I would not suggest going. No, Jen's not going anymore. Who did the New York Times endorse? They're supposed to tell us today, but we don't know. We don't know.
10 p.m.
Oh, we'll find out at 10 p.m. The suspense is killing me. The suspense is killing me. My money is on Biden, but if not Biden, probably Warren. I don't think I just don't see them. I don't see Pete. I don't see Klobuchar. I think it's going to be Biden or Warren. My gut is Biden because it's the New York Times and they just do the most predictable status quo-y thing. But I also think they might throw a wrench and go for Warren because they would think they're endorsing like a progressive and like giving a twist to the process. But I don't know. It reeks of Biden. Particularly, I read Biden's interview with them, and it was very, very soft. Whereas Bernie's was very, very scorched earth. So, by the way, we're still looking for new members. We got 3 new members. Oh, we just got another new member. Welcome, Kate. We're now at 813 Status Coup members. Can we get 7 more members while I'm live before I drive to my nephew's birthday party? Can we get 7 more members to get to 820 before the end of this live stream? It's only $5. Only $5 a month. Well, we have other plans too. We love our $10 a month members. We love our $20 a month members. We love our $179 annual members. Keep signing up. Thank you to Kate. They will probably go for Biden. It's probable. That's my guess. Somebody asked about the Flint documentary. We have our agent working on it right now. We do have a sales agent for that. There are interested networks, and we can't get into it, but something might be happening soon that's going to help get that documentary picked up. That's all I could say. Pink Blazer, what's your max donation? For membership, you could become a $179 annual member. So that's the max for membership. But for just donating, you could donate to us whatever amount you want. PayPal. Let me give you the link here. PayPal.me/statuscoup. So here's the link for our no max there. Put what you want right there. And we also have we're not actively promoting it because we met our goal, but like we haven't shut down our GoFundMe. So if you want, you could donate there, whatever amount. There's no max. So if you want to donate $1 million, go for it. I won't stop you. Rob R., I read your super chat. Jayapal endorsed Bernie. I actually mentioned that at the beginning of the live stream. That's a big endorsement. Big endorsement for Bernie. What else? Tulsi for defense secretary? I wouldn't mind that at all. My super chat said Jayapal endorsed Bernie. Yeah. I said that at the beginning of the show. I think you weren't here yet. But thank you for the super chat. What happened to the kazoo, Jordan? Kazoo was the best? Kazoo? What's a kazoo? Am I forgetting? What's a kazoo? Jordan is a nomad, no, but we will find it. Oh, you know what it is. Liz's toast, just a reminder, I think she just, I did a video on this. I think she lit her political career on fire. Jimmy would be a hilarious press secretary. Ugh, I would pay a lot of money to see that. Oh, the noisy thing you blow. It's at my parents' house. I'll get it. That's what it is. I wouldn't mind well, I would take Bill McKibben before I would take Jay Inslee as EPA secretary. But I think Inslee did some good things on climate. I think as a governor, he's let Amazon have their way with Washington State and Seattle. Not a big fan of what he's done in Washington State, but on climate, I like his urgency. Margot, not only am I female, I'm 45 years old. Bernie bros. Tulsi would be an awesome VP. Way to shore up support from disenfranchised people. My first choice is Nina Turner. I've been consistent on that. I think she's much stronger than Tulsi Gabbard. I also think, right or wrong, if Bernie picks Tulsi Gabbard, the media is going to go ballistic, and Bernie's already going to have a lot of obstacles if he wins the nomination. I don't think he needs another crusade against him over Tulsi Gabbard. I would make her my defense secretary, but I wouldn't make her my vice president. That's just me. Tulsi Gabbard supporters might not like it, but I'm being honest. Jordan for chief of staff? Hell nah. Nina doesn't want VP? Who you hearing that from? I got news for you. Nina Turner would take vice president in a New York minute. Second, will you be covering election stuff in California? We plan to, yes. But the money don't grow on trees. Every one of these trips cost us thousands of dollars, and we are growing from the ground up. So we've already spent quite a lot of the money you've granted us on going all over the country. Average trip for us costs $2 to $3 grand, plus equipment, plus cost for advertising and social media, plus the cost of Jen, Colin, Marcus, myself. It all costs money, folks. So definitely, if you have the means, statuscoup.com/join. That's statuscoup.com/join. Become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Makes a big difference. And right now we're at 813 Status Coup members. I would love to get up to 820 by the end of this live stream, which I'll be ending in a few minutes. Kyle Kalinske for press secretary. I would like that. I think he's great too. Is Mayor Pete fading? You know, it's tough. According to the polls, he's dipped a bit, but you just don't know. Iowa's such a toss-up, and he's going to have the next 2 weeks with very little Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, or Klobuchar in Iowa. He's going to have Iowa pretty much to himself with Biden because they're going to be in the impeachment hearing. So there's still a chance for Pete. That's why it's important to keep exposing the truth. Nina doesn't want VP from what I understand. I think Yang should be VP for Bernie. I don't know what you're basing that off of, but I don't agree with that. Steve, $4.99. Patricia Arquette ignorantly asked Bernie's campaign to apologize for doctored Biden video. Instantly has to delete tweet. Oh, God. You can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. You just can't. Thank you for the super chat. Neil, $2. Any state ballot props coming with this election? Oh, I'm sure there are. We'll find out about more of them as the election gets closer, so we'll be covering that. That's probably the way Boomer Biden understands it. Will Bernie have a chance in contested convention with Dem Elite running the show? I'm just going to be honest, no. If it's a contested convention with the Dem Elites running it, no. Jordan, am I wrong for thinking a Biden-Warren unity ticket was the weakest combo for Trump? I think his ads would be hilarious. I think it's an immediate loss if it's Biden-Warren. Between Biden's record and Warren's lies, Trump would have a field day. That is the worst potential ticket. So, of course, the Democrats will think it's the best potential ticket. All right, folks. I got to sign off. Got to drive over to my nephew's birthday party. Thank you, as always, for tuning in with us. I will say one more time, if you're on the fence, I hope you'll get off the fence. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Keep checking out our reporting on youtube.com/statuscoup. If you are not a subscriber, subscribe. Make sure you click the bell so you get all notifications. They still won't notify you all the time, but that's your best chance. Also, if you have not done so, sign up for our text alert list. Doesn't cost you anything, and it helps us get around the YouTube suppression because YouTube doesn't notify people. Most of the time, they don't notify people when we're live. So please sign up. Text 474747 and enter COUP. That's 474747. Enter COUP. The more people that sign up, the more people that will get alerted when we're live. So all you got to do is type that number and then type in COUP to join our text list. So that's it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you. Will I be? Yeah, I think I'll see you tomorrow too. Traveling back and forth, but I should be there tomorrow. And remember, most people are not lacking compassion in this country. Most people have no idea what in the world is going on.